The Jaguars have very little to gain, but everything to lose by playing New England on Sunday in London. I'll tell you why in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for joining me here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where you can find on YouTube at the Locked On Jaguars YouTube page. You can also find it wherever you listen to or hear your podcasts. I want to thank the everydayers for joining us here, as you do every single day. We appreciate you. And let you know that today's show is also sponsored by FanDuel. That's right, folks. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Make sure you head on over and place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, the Jags play Sunday in London at 9:30 in the morning versus the New England Patriots. They're technically the home team, if you can consider the game in London a home game. I know some fans get kind of upset when we do that. However, here's what we're going to discuss. Why are the Jaguars just in a situation where they're actually seeing bottom? They're not at rock bottom. They're close, but they're looking at it. And the thing is that could get a lot worse if they lose this game Sunday, and that's why we're going to talk about it in that respect. Speaking of respect, we're going to talk about saving some respect, a modicum of respect, and that's what the guys and the coaches are playing for and coaching for at this point. We'll see if that is good enough for the Jaguars to play well enough to keep everyone interested for the rest of the year, or is it going to be a reason for everyone to continue to call for the jobs of management? And then they have everything to lose. Speaking of the jobs of management, that's one thing that we are going to kick off, and we're going to make sure that we start that here today. Man, it is extremely, extremely difficult to imagine that if the Jaguars win this game this week, that it's going to change the mind of a bunch of people that believe that the team should start heading in a different direction. And trust me, let me let y'all know, the noise is very loud from a lot of folks that I trust. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that anyone has said that they know definitively that Shad Khan is going to clean house. That would be disingenuous of me to say that. That is not true. I'm not going to report anything like that. Let me tell you what is going on, though. There's a prevailing thought that unless something miraculous happens, like they win, they have 11 games left. Unless they go 9-2, I'm almost willing to say 10-1 for the rest of these games. I pretty much, and a lot of people that I trust, some in town and most not in town, by the way, believes that this is pretty much over. That Shad Khan is leaning towards, and it doesn't have to happen right now, but is leaning towards at some point looking, and granted, this isn't coming from anybody that heard this from him, but that conversations is that Shad Khan is leaning towards starting this thing over in 2025. And when I say this thing, I mean completely. There are folks that are in certain positions that have spoken to people, that have spoken to me, that have said, I think they're going to reboot the whole thing. And that's why I put out last week, I put a podcast out there that actually a lot of people listen to. And on the thumbnail, I had Control-Alt-Delete, which is universally known as a rebooting of the system. And like I said, it's not to a point where you report that that's what you've heard. And I'll reiterate that is not what I am saying. I want to be very, very clear about that. But in this business, you learn to listen to, I wouldn't say a lot of the noise, because the noise is mostly media or fan generated. Uh, but what I will say is there are people that you know that can tell you how somebody's feeling without really telling you how somebody's feeling. There are people that you know that will give you an idea of questions that have been raised, feelings. You got to think how the dynamic of this works. This works in several ways. You have players and you have agents and you have coaches, media people, folks in the building, folks who used to be in the building that are still cool with people in the building. And all of these things, you get a little information from everybody, and you'll get yourself in trouble hanging on to one bit of information from one specific group, because sometimes those things are a little bit self-serving. But when you have information that you are receiving or feelings that you are receiving about the situation from all of those different entities, little tidbits of information from all of those little entities, that leads you to think something is going on here. I heard it from one group, and I call it a group. It's not, it's a person, but a person is representative of one group, and we ain't gonna get into the specifics. I did hear someone from that group say to me something that we have all said before, and that's he's got to start clean and wipe the whole thing out and make sure he doesn't keep remnants or little pieces and parts from a previous administration, because that's the mistake that they believe he now realizes that he continues to make, and that is that he doesn't make a clean cut, or you don't cut the umbilical cord all the way. You're still attached to the past, and every time you do that, you're attaching yourself to losing, and it leads you to try to figure out who is the one or what is the culprit of that losing. And generally, if you're listening to one part of that entity that's telling you that it's somebody else, that is influence, in my opinion, that I wouldn't necessarily call it disingenuous, but I would call it self-serving. Therefore, instead of constantly going out and adding to that mess, you're now going to get into a situation, especially if you keep Trent Baalke, when you try to go out and find the people to work under him and for Trevor Lawrence, that you're going to shrink that pool some, because there are a lot of people that will be, whether they believe it or not, I don't care what kind of coach you are. All coaches believe, hey man, we can fix this. But if you have people like agents, like other coaches, that are hesitant to come with you and come here, well, that's going to hinder you doing your job if you're a prospective coach. And then if you're a prospective coach good enough to get that phone call, then that means you'll probably be good enough to get another one. You don't want the pool shrunk. So now what's going on is you got to ask yourself as a Jaguar fan, what do you really want? Do you really want this team to win and at least separate themselves from the bottom just a little bit? Okay, we beat the Colts. We probably beat the Panthers if we played them. And if they beat the Patriots, you've now beaten the algae eaters section of the NFL. You look in a fish tank and you see that thing that all he does is suck dirt off those rocks and off the inside. Those are the algae eaters. Those are bottom feeders. Shout out to those teams. I don't mean to make you feel bad, but I'm sure you probably feel, if you're a Panthers, Patriots, Panthers or a Patriots fan, or maybe even a Colts fan, you probably feel bad about your team, especially the Colts, because they lost to the Jaguars. But I'm not saying anything about those clubs that those people probably don't agree with. Don't want to hear it from the outside, like Jaguar fans don't want to hear it from the outside, but it's the truth. Can the Jaguars save a modicum of respect by winning this game Sunday? Or do you really want them to hit rock bottom so that Shad Khan knows exactly how serious this situation is? I'll tell you, what I feel about that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Arena Club. Man, if you are a collector of cards, good for you, because card collecting can be a very, very good thing to do, nice hobby, and guess what? It's like putting up currency. But most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Luka, Ellie, or Mahomes rookie card just isn't in the cards, so to speak. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. Thanks to slap packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed was a hit from last week's Arena Club slap pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out right now. You can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/lockedonnfl. Use the code LockedOnNFL. That's right, arenaclub.com/lockedonnfl. Code LockedOnNFL for 10% off your first purchase. Check out Arena Club. Today's sponsor is also Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports site in America. Prize Picks is giving out billions of dollars in awarded winnings with over 10 million members. The difference is with Prize Picks, you're not battling those 10 million members every week. You're just playing you against Prize Picks itself. And that gives you a chance to actually be one of those people that gets a share of those billions of dollars that have been passed out. All you got to do is pick between 2 and 6 player projections and just say more or less than the stats that they have projected. For instance, how many yards do you think Trevor Lawrence is going to throw for? Whatever that number is on Prize Picks, you can go more than or less than. I kind of think he's going to cut it loose a little bit this week. And I think you should maybe look into that and then putting another one with it. 2 is the minimum and get you some money. You can win up to 100 times your money if you put down at least 4 projections of player statistics. Here's what you got to do, man. Go download the app today and use the code LockedOnNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. The promo code again is LockedOnNFL, LOCKEDON NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Go ahead and go to prizepicks.com. Get paid right now. All right, we're back here. Ain't gone nowhere, but now you see my face again. Talk about the Jaguars saving respect. Do I think they should win or lose? I think win or lose, it doesn't change the fact that Shad Khan is going to do something. I think if they win, it puts that off. It puts it off because there's no need to really do it at this point. Unless you're hoping for some reason that whoever the interim coach is turns it around, and that wouldn't represent a clean breakup, would it? That wouldn't represent. I just think you have to wonder whether or not the Jaguars have really, really already decided what they're going to do based on what they think is going to happen, and if something could happen to change that. I don't see them going on this massive winning streak because of all of the things that are wrong with this team right now. One of the main things is they're not physical enough on both sides of the ball. The offensive line has played better, but it hasn't been great. I think they had played 2 games in a row pretty good, and then against the Bears, they didn't fare that well last week. Secondary is banged up, even though they're getting a little bit more healthy. That still doesn't mean they're going to play a whole bunch better. The run defense has been okay, but then when they need to stop the run, they can't do it. But they're also a team that still makes the most boneheaded decisions, and they do some of the weirdest things when they're, at the wrong time during the game. And it's just like, oh, here we go again. And then everybody has this look on their face like they don't know what to do. It's like, man, we're trying. At some point, you ever had somebody, you're putting them through stuff, and then they go, I'm trying. I can't do it any better. That's kind of what the Jaguars, they're not saying it, but I think they realize that. You lose enough games. Trevor Lawrence has lost 11 out of his last 12 starts. You lose enough games, and at some point, you never say you're not good enough, but you can easily say we're not good enough. And I think you're getting those answers at an alarming rate, and you're getting those admissions every time they lose a game. And these guys stand up at the podium and they have to take ownership, and they say it starts with me. We're just not good enough as a team. And at some point, you haven't quite had it yet, but you have had a situation where Andre Cisco has mentioned the word quit. Fans have observed it, media has observed it, and they talk about body language, and they talk about guys looking like they've given up and like they've quit. I don't think it's quit in the sense of not caring. I think it's quitting in the sense of realizing we're gonna get our head bashed in every single week because we're just not good. There is a reality to contact sports and gladiator type sports. At some point, you're going out there hitting people and they're hitting you back. And at some point, their licks start to take a toll on you. And at some point, these guys go, we are not good enough as a collective unit to overcome whatever they're dishing out. It's just what it is. It's hard to imagine that guys who have worked their entire life to get where all of us wanted to get to when we were kids get to that point and they come to that realization. The thing about sports is you get to see it live and in person. And even though they may not have any quit individually inside of them, it's very, very understandable that they may understand and know that they are not good enough. And that's why you don't have a whole bunch of answers, because they're not going to really point to it. They don't know why. All they know is that they're just not good. And you keep losing over and over again, you run out of things and excuses to say. So the question for me is, do you want to see him hit that rock bottom? Because if you're in your mind, if they're already there, then the only reason you want to see them hit rock bottom is because you got an idea, or you think that there might be somebody who is so optimistic and so blinded by his love for the black and teal and the thing that he created, Shad Khan and maybe Trent Baalke, that they'll think that any victory is, okay, this is the moment that we're going to turn this around. God forbid they win 2 or 3 games in a row. And that's one of the things I said about last week, that when they were playing the Bears, if they messed around and get that game and then they get the one from the Patriots, now everybody's going to think, because, we had a little Locked On NFL meeting, and I was telling my man Tyler Rowland from the Madman, who does the AM version of the Locked On NFL show, and this is the barbershop version. I told him last week, I said, hold on, man, let's put that death sentence for and he'll tell you I said, hold off on 1 week for putting that death nail in that coffin for Doug Peterson. Because if he wins the game against the Bears, against the rookie quarterback, and then he messes around and they beat New England with Dre May, nobody's going to sit here and say, well, he beat 2 rookie quarterbacks. Jaguar Nation, and that's where the hot seat comes from. It comes from fans and media. I mean, Shad Khan going into the Bears game said that he had confidence in those guys, and he still believed in the team. So if they win those 2 games, then they come back from London with a 2-game winning streak, and they play at home against the Packers. And the Jaguars have shown sometimes that they can be a really, really competitive team. That would have been an entirely different situation and an entirely different feeling. Losing to the Bears kind of made everybody realize, the week before against the Colts when they won 37-34 was a little bit of an aberration. It just happened. It doesn't mean anything. And then against the Patriots, that's why I keep saying they ain't going to gain much from this win. People are just going to say they beat one of the 2 worst teams in the league. But boy, they could lose a whole bunch. If they lose to one of those teams, then there is no line of demarcation between them and the bottom. They are the bottom. Some people may say that if they're one of the 4 or 5 worst teams in the league, which I think they are right now, that's already representative of bottom. But there's another bottom that's worse than the bottom. I'm thinking about the ocean, right? You see the ocean floor. I'm talking about the part of the ocean floor when you go down even further with some machine that's equipped to go down there without exploding, and you start to see animals with 17 eyes. And you start to see stuff that folks don't recognize. You might see a fish that got feet like a human and then a head like a cow. I mean, ain't no telling what is in the bit. That is about where the Jaguars will be if they lose to the Patriots. When you start seeing animals that you don't recognize, and science didn't even know it. That's, I think that part of bottom is more representative of what I'm saying here, that if the Jaguars lose this game. I'm going to talk about seeing that bottom and what will happen. I believe what will happen if they get to that point. We'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by FanDuel. That's right, America's #1 sports book. I know it hasn't been fun for you if you're a Jaguar fan, but guess what? If you're a Jaguar fan who's made some money, well, at least you got paid to be miserable. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book for a reason. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. $5 bet. I didn't say you had to win. I say you had to place it. Your first ever $5 bet and $200 in bonus bets guaranteed will pop right up. When you're on your page too, where you make your wagers and your bets, all you got to do, man, is look at, you don't have to change the page. You can just change right there. Player stats right there. Play by play right there. You don't have to change. You don't have to go back and forth. All you got to do is stay on your same page, especially if you're playing fantasy and making a nice little wager. FanDuel is the #1 sports book for a reason, and you can get started with a big return on FanDuel with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So visit FanDuel.com to look at odds and make sure you read up on everything before making those wagers, because FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. You heard it right here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, third segment here on Locked On Jaguars. We're talking about everything to lose, saving respect, because that is really the thing that the Jaguars playing for, and whether or not seeing bottom would elicit a response or some sort of movement in the Jaguars front office. Lose these two games, and I think somebody gets fired this week, to be honest, which I don't know what good it does at this point, except it does give an idea or let people know that, yeah, we're in the process of evaluating next year at this point. We're trying to take inventory of everything that we have, see what we have, see if we can get a spark out of this team, see what these guys are made of, what they're cut from, the cloth that they're cut from. Is it going to just be all talk? Let somebody with different ideas at least give us an idea of what it is and what it isn't. And sometimes the only time you have to take inventory of something, you have to see what's in there. You got to split it up. You got to see what's going on. And that's not to say that it's Doug Peterson's fault, but you do kind of want to keep guys engaged. You don't want to ever accept mediocrity. And I know, coming from me and Jaguar fans saying that they don't accept mediocrity, you don't want to accept mediocrity. I realize you're going to say, you are kidding me. You can't be serious when you're talking about Shad Khan. And I'm going to give Shad a little bit of a break on that. I'm not going to get mad at him, because he is the type of person that gives you every opportunity to see. A lot of people get a chance to succeed, but most people don't get a chance to fail. And then because sometimes when it comes to being good, you fail at first. I remember Jimmy Johnson took over Dallas. They were 1-15, may have been the worst team I've ever seen. That's failure. But it's how you overcome that failure and what you do to dig yourself out of that hole. I don't get angry at him for his patience. I just think that sometimes that patience, because of messaging, is viewed as nonchalance. And I do believe that he wants to win, but I know he gives the key. He's given the keys to the franchise to a couple of groups now that haven't done exactly that. I think also that at some point in 2016, when they had a good draft, and after that, the following year, in 2017, they basically hired a senior executive vice president, Tom Coughlin, and they took the draft away from the people who had been drafting, and guys kind of went in the other direction. I think in retrospect, he might have said, dang, I messed up. I had a good thing going in 16 and 17. Because if you think about 16, it was a no-brainer. They took Jalen Ramsey, then they took Miles Jack, then they took Yannick Ngakoue. They signed Malik Jackson. They were really, really back on their way to doing a whole bunch of good stuff. And in 2017, that came into fruition. And then it blew up because guys just weren't happy with the way things were in the building. Man, people will go back to 2017 right now and do anything, cut their right arm off to have 2017 back, and the feeling that we had about that team. That team was just built a certain way with certain chippy individuals, and it could go off the rails at any minute. Well, the temperature in the building with the coach and the senior executive vice president and not knowing who what, when that atmosphere changed, a lot of the bad parts of that whole situation came out. Since then, he's been very, very patient, has Shad Khan. There are some people that believe that if he could see bottom, I mean, just rock bottom where he is, and a lot of Jaguar fans, like I said, they feel like that's where this team is now, but maybe he doesn't. But go back to what I said in the first segment. There are people that can read the tea leaves that believe that this thing is going to get gutted. A loss this weekend will probably cause a lot of friction to start moving around to the point where that's believable, because a lot of Jaguar fans don't believe it. They say, no, he's going to hire Ethan Watt. No, he's just going to cut one person loose, but he's probably going to keep Trent. No, change the coaching staff, keep Trent. I'm telling y'all, that is not what I'm hearing from people that know. How would folks come to these conclusions? Well, private searches, questions, vetting that is going on. Those are the things that you can't keep quiet. The feeling from inside of the building that they're all toast and they're all cooked, that is a very real thing. And I don't know if that came from the owner, but there are a lot of people in that space that feel like we're all done. We're all done, man. Unless something miraculous happens, we're cooked, we're toast. I know that is music to some ears of the Jaguar fans. And it probably should be. And I know I sound somber with it because I hate saying something without saying something, but I can't definitively say that I'm 100% correct because you don't hear things from the source. But what you do hear from, you know, 25 years of doing this professionally, not considering that I also probably got another 5 or 6 years on top of that of just knowing people that know people, from guys that played to it's people I used to hang with, man, and I used to buy beer because they were broke. Well, those guys are in the agent world now, and and he's gonna get mad at me when I say that. Shout out, he wasn't broke. There were certain people that were on a budget because they were at the beginning of their career and they were paying student loans, and I wanted to hang with them, but I knew that they always had to kind of keep themselves. Nah, man, you know, I kind of keep it. No, I got you. Come on, let's go. Okay, so let's reframe that. Nobody begged me for a drink. But I have friends and relationships with people that are now, they could buy me a drink 10 times more than I can buy them one. And the relationships that you have with people, there are certain people when they call me and say, no, dog, this done. It's done. I believe them. I believe them. So, do you want them to go ahead and just hit rock bottom and lose, or you want to play for a modicum of respect? I don't know. And this is a point where if you're not a Jaguar fan, you're like, why is this guy talking like it's a funeral? Because we have basically had, over the last 15 years, we've had 13 funerals. Some of them started earlier than this in week 6. This one started this early, and we didn't think he was going to be here. Unfortunately, I'm really good at football eulogies. It's a practice. Some people say, man, you do that so well. I don't want to, but I got a lot of practice at it. I wish I wasn't good at grief counseling and misery speaking and talking people off the ledge and making people see dysfunction as their reality. But you're just in it. You're not of it. I wish I didn't have to do all of them sermons every time, but this is what it is. This is where we are. And this is the sad part about it, that our communication has to be like this at this point in the year, 2 days before a game. Let me take a deep breath and woosah and tell y'all to go watch Locked On NFL, especially if you're a Jaguar fan. You need some good football. You need some funny. Go check out Tyler Rowland early in the morning. I know he's a Titan fan, but guess what? He ain't got a whole bunch to be talking about his team either, but he talks about all the other teams in the National Football League. The Madman will give you a double shot of espresso on Locked On NFL AM, and then on a lunchtime barbershop show, come on and see me on Locked On NFL. 2 versions of Locked On NFL. You can find them both on the Locked On NFL YouTube page or wherever you hear or get your podcasts. Jaguar fans, I'll be here with a postcast on Sunday at about 12:30. And I'm going to give you my honest assessment. And hopefully by the time I do that podcast, nobody gets fired. I can talk about that Monday morning if it happens. Well, let's just see what the Jaguars do this particular weekend against the New England Patriots that are one of the 2 worst teams in the league. Man, if they lose this one, y'all go ahead and fry some chicken and get a whole bunch of sodas and wear your Sunday best, because we're going to have us a repass on this 2024 NFL season. Take care of yourself. I'll do the same. We'll see you guys Sunday for the postcast.